Hello and welcome to AEF TV. I'm joined by Neil Upton, who is a partner for the Energy and Infrastructure Group at SJ Berwin. And Neil, we were just talking off air a little bit about the energy mix and the generation mix within Africa, and this slightly sort of almost disingenuous or I'm again struggling for the word, sort of selfish position where the developed world is telling Africa, look, you gotta be more renewable, more green, and what you were saying is that, well, actually we aren't really practicing what we preach on that front either. So what were your sort of observations around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's undeniably true. Whilst I've worked around Africa for 20 years, I have a role in the UK looking at what's called the Bang for Buck Committee on energy mix. We've got a second dash for gas. Gas is a fossil fuel. It affects the ozone layer. Internationally, when you talk to the big developers and the big contractors, there isn't any of them that say that there won't be more coal plants built between now and 2030 in aggregate megawatt terms than they'll match every single form of other generation. And that's because the Asian markets and the other markets need to deploy and are going to deploy coal as a fuel for power generation. If you look at the position in Africa for fossil fuel developments of different kinds, it literally is just a drop in the bucket against the other comparators. So it's very unfair to turn around to people who need to be able to find the lowest and the most effective form of power generation and say, you can't use the base load fuels that are available to you because we don't want you to, when in fact most of the rest of the world has every intention of using fossil fuels as part of its energy mix and has to do it. So whilst it may not be politically correct or environmentally 100% responsible to say so, that is part of an energy mix. And in Africa it needs to be part of the energy mix where it's available.
And this is one of the things, having read up on this subject and things like that, is we cannot ignore fossil fuels as an energy mix because of their very DNA. You talk to a chemical engineer about trapped potential in coal versus anything else. It's kind of off the scale. Coal, oil, gas, all those fossil fuels. Do you think, and this is a bit of a philosophical question, but do you think we're chasing an unrealistic goal in terms of actually having, because this is a world issue, isn't it? A sustainable type of energy mix that can, because that is at a clash with our economic paradigm, which is all about growth.
Yeah. No, I don't think we're chasing something that is pie in the sky or a dream. But the point about it is, energy mix is just that. Every joined up policy, and there aren't that many around the world, but joined up policies look at the different forms of generation that are available and the different forms of energy and where they are naturally available to be developed. And they say, looking at this particular market, it might be the Southern African power pool, it might be the West African one, or it might be the UK, right? What technologies and what fuels are naturally available to be developed to create a blend? And in that blend, one is looking to try and achieve the most efficient, most secure, because security of supply actually is fundamentally important, and the lowest price of power, right? To get to those points, fossil fuels and nuclear, right, have a role to play. Nuclear takes a very long time to develop and has to be developed in very big units, right? Fossil fuels takes less time to be developed, is all improving technologies, has got available capacity for development worldwide, and has natural resources that are available for development in different parts of Africa. So, you take that and you say, okay, it's part of an energy mix, it's part of solar, it's part of wind, it's part of a whole program across a regional market. But what it isn't, right, what it shouldn't be is prohibited, right? Because otherwise it's not part of the energy mix, and therefore there's no logical economic reason for getting the best solutions.
But you've touched on something just then when you said the word regional markets. And is that how all of this needs to be looked at now, rather than where maybe 20 years ago your energy issue was, or maybe slightly longer than that, your energy issue was very insular, as in it was your country's energy issue. You weren't tapping into, oh look, there's big gas resources in Russia, how can we move that here where there's the market, and things like that. So is it this energy market, this clusters, is that the way forward?
Well, I think to be honest, I think that is the way that a lot of the African market and most of the markets have seen themselves for a long time. I mean, I was part of the advisory group that advised the European Union when the integrated markets for electricity and gas were being designed. I did the feasibility work when in the Middle East when they designed what was called Project Backbone, which is the transmission system that joins up the major Middle Eastern countries, and that's about capacity sharing, right, between countries. SAP, WAP, EAP, those are all about capacity sharing and having a way to trade more efficiently within your local geography. They exist. Yes, they may have more dominant players, so Eskom is a substantially dominant player within SAP, but all the countries that surround them have their own aspirations for self-determination in energy supply within their borders. And because of the nature of the network that connects them, they either have the ability to export surplus if they've got surplus, or to suck in some based on the physics and the trading that's taking place. So yes, you could have upgrades to the networks, but if you are developing, one thing that history tells you about industrial development is it tends to follow the development of power within a geography. Gross domestic product improves substantially.
Well, there's
other opportunities.
There's a direct correlation, isn't there? I mean, if you look at the Industrial Revolution, there's a direct correlation between how quickly could we get the coal out of the pits to economic development. The graphs follow each other almost. There's a slight lag, obviously, but they do follow each other.
That's right.
So that's one of the things which I can't, and maybe I'm being too simplistic about it, which I can't seem to reconcile, because we've got an economic model where it judges or creates development through a measure of growth. It's about growth. Yeah, you don't have big companies standing up and saying, we're not going to grow this year because we're going to be more sustainable. Yeah. Maybe the media is at fault because the media would pounce on that and say, oh, that's wrong, when it might actually be the right decision. So we've got this, what I call this infinite growth paradigm.
Yeah.
And we've got energy fuels growth once you've taken it all the way down. We've got what I would call not an infinite energy paradigm.
Yeah.
The two are going to clash. And I think already are in some cases, aren't they?
Well, I think there is a contradiction between efficient use of fuel and energy and your social and environmental responsibilities, and the fact that those social and environmental responsibilities are kind of seen as being an umbrella across the whole world, and pretty much everybody who is socially responsible, ought to be trying to find a way to, reduce the circumstances in which they're adding to, the ozone-related and climate change problems. I agree with that. Okay, I don't think it's inconsistent, right, to say that your social responsibility, right, is to try and mitigate that within the construct of what is required from a macro and social economic perspective within your own borders and within your own countries, because you owe duties, right, to your own people, right, and to your own region to develop and move on. And within that development and moving on is, the germ of improvement, better living standards, better quality of life, people that can come forward and develop their own kind of technologies and experience, all the rest of it. So if that doesn't happen, right, a large swathe of the world that has got intellectual and actual power, right, in the truest sense, that which is in spirit, is being suppressed. It cannot be right.
No, I understand that. It seems like quite a we aren't going to get the answer here today, but it seems like quite a complex thing to reconcile, and I do get a sense that we're going to go through a period of change in order to find that solution, because I don't think, what you're saying, no one person has the solution, and I agree with you that there's you can't equally turn around to people who, one of the other interviewees from Abu Art was saying that, her artists are saying to her, look, I've only got 3 hours of light in which to paint. I want more power so I can paint more. Yeah. You can't deny people that. So just to wrap up, because we're coming to the end of our time here, what would you say is, you've been coming to these events for a long time, what would you say is the most encouraging conversation that you see happening?
The most encouraging conversation that I've come across is the realization that that the development itself is more important now, whereas in the past it used to be whatever happens, it has to happen in this way. If it doesn't happen in this way, it will never happen. I think there has been a movement there. I think the other bit that is important is that technology and development. There is more discussion around technology solutions to lots of things now than there ever was 10 years ago. And so for example, we discuss various things and we say, well, this will be an issue. But there are technologies out there which are mitigating the effects of fossil fuel generation, whether it's advanced flue gas desulfuration or carbon capture technologies. Seeing the possibility for some of those to be deployed in Africa as part of a solution, and listening to people around saying, well, we are looking at this, but we're also looking at how we use it in the most environmentally friendly way. That kind of, for me, is a really good thing, and it's giving a message to the people that have got big R&D budgets, which is go out there and find a way to use these fuels in a greener circumstance, and you'll be able to sell them in Africa like you can everywhere else.
So you were coming at the problem and trying to tackle every single facet, because it is a complex issue. It's a shame we've come to the end of our time here, because I feel that we opened up maybe 3 other potential interview areas, which I wish we had more time for. But thank you for making the time to be here. It was a pleasure talking to you. And thank you very much for watching. As ever, this interview will be available on the AEF website as well as ngirati.com. And I hope you enjoyed this particular session.